Hello and welcome back to anyone and everyone watching. It's time for another episode of Silly Season with Joe, my weekly off-season NASCAR news recap. This week there were quite a few headlines. The most significant one came a few days ago and it was confirmed that Travis Pastrana will be attempting the Daytona 500. I'll be going over all the details we know about that later on, as well as another Daytona 500 entry that was announced and tons of other stories from all the top three divisions of NASCAR and even ARCA. But without any further ado, let's get right into this week's news. Starting with the Truck Series, first up, both Hill Motorsports and Hattori Racing announced they'll be downsizing their operations for the 2023 season. Hill Motorsports, who last year ran the number 56 truck full-time for Timmy Hill and the number 5 truck part-time for Tyler Hill, will now only be running the 56 truck for both of the co-owners. Timmy will be behind the wheel for the season opener at Daytona, but any other details are yet to be released. Since their founding in 2019, Hill Motorsports has been one of the top underfunded teams in the Truck Series, as despite operating on a fraction of some of the top teams' budgets, Team has scored a top 5 and 6 top 10s thus far. However, it was Tyler who delivered the team their best ever finish with a runner-up to Tate Fogelman in the 2021 Talladega race. I hope the 56 truck will at least be a full-time entry this year, but that will all depend upon sponsorship. Luckily for them, they've already been able to sign with the units moving in portable storage for 6 races. That should help them quite a bit. Then for Hattori Racing, after expanding to field 2 full-time trucks in 2022, they'll now be scaling back to still run their flagship number 16 full-time with Tyler Ankrum, but will now only be running the number 61 truck part-time. The driver of the 61 last year was Chase Purdy, who totaled 2 top 10s and a 16th place finish in points, but so far there have been no leads as to who the new driver or drivers will be. Next up, the first driver of Tricon Garage's number 1 truck was announced, and that will be William Sawalik. For those unfamiliar with William, he is only 16 years old, but already has multiple late model wins in the Cars Tour, and already has been announced to be driving the number 18 Joe Gibbs racing car full-time in the ARCA East Series. It appears that Toyota is going all in on making William their next big development driver, and just by looking at some of his stats from the past few years, I would have to say they're making the right decision. Williams' 2023 schedule will consist of 6 races, including Martinsville, Mid-Ohio, Richmond, IRP, Milwaukee, and Bristol. Also, upon making his debut, William will be the only active NASCAR or ARCA driver from Minnesota, which is where I'm originally from, so I'll definitely be rooting for him. Our final Truck Series story of the week came from On Point Motorsports, who announced Ryan Vargas will be competing for them in 7 races with sponsorship from Critical Path Security, Vargas Security, Swan Security, and Williamsburg Contracting. It seems like those first 3 would be kind of conflicts of interest, but I digress. Nothing further has come from On Point Motorsports so far, but I'm speculating that if he didn't land a better ride already, that Caden Honeycutt will be returning for multiple races with them, because he performed well beyond his expectations in their truck last year, scoring a top 10 and 2 additional top 15s in only 7 races. But back to Vargas, that isn't all for his 2023 plans. It's just a day later he made it official that he'll be the anchor driver for CHK Racing in the Xfinity Series. For those who don't know, CHK was previously known as Mike Harmon Racing, but will now be undergoing a rebrand with help from Gary Keller and Mike Clayton, along with, of course, Mike Harmon. Despite making good gains in 2020 and 2021, with primary drivers Kyle Weatherman and Bailey Curry giving the team their first ever top 10s, last year was nothing short of a disaster for Mike Harmon Racing. But despite failing to qualify for more races than they made and suffering near weekly mechanical failures, Ryan Vargas was able to pilot their car to a respectable P23 in the Portland race, one of his 2 attempts for them. As of now, the only sponsors that have been announced for the 74 team are Vargas Security and Williamsburg Contracting, who will be on the car at Daytona. I'm not sure what to expect in the short term for this team given how bad they were last year, but I would say they should certainly aim to qualify for and finish every race, and to maybe pull a surprise top 10 or 2 on one of the super speedways. Also on Xfinity, Junior Motorsports announced that Miguel Paludo will be returning for 3 more road course races in the Brandt-sponsored number 88 car. Those races will be COTA, the Chicago Street Course, and the Indy Road Course. Having competed in the Truck Series from 2010 to 2013, Miguel left NASCAR to race sports cars in Brazil before he made a surprise return to the sport with Junior Motorsports in 2021, where in his 6 races since then he's recorded 2 top 10s with the best finish of 7th. In addition to that news, Junior Motorsports also revealed that in honor of Brandt's 70th anniversary, Justin Allgaier will be running a special platinum-colored paint scheme for the season opener at Daytona. It definitely looks off because I've been so used to seeing this same red and yellow scheme for multiple years at this point, but I think it still looks pretty solid. Lastly, for the Xfinity Series news, and in a bit of a bad way to leave off, Landon Cassill stated that due to the bankruptcy of his main sponsor, Voyager Digital, he will no longer be able to race full-time. From what it sounds like now, Cassill, who previously was slated to return full-time in the Kaulig Racing number 10 car, will still be able to race part-time in as many races he can find funding for. Shortly following that unfortunate news, Kaulig announced that Justin Haley will be competing in, quote, multiple races in the number 10 car beginning at Daytona. They also refer to the car as the team's all-star car now, so in other words, expect to see AJ Allmendinger back in the road courses and potentially other Chevy Cup drivers on the ovals over the course of the year. While you never want to see any driver sidelined due to a lack of performance, I can't help but point out that Landon Cassill didn't exactly perform up to his expectations last year. Although the only Kaulig driver to win in 2022 was, of course, AJ Allmendinger, Cassill had such inconsistent results that he managed to miss the playoffs. And given his experience compared to much of his competition, there's really no excuse for that. While some may point out that he was disqualified due to a rear body height infraction in New Hampshire, where he otherwise would have finished third, and even then still barely missed the cut line, I'm still not too sympathetic on this one. As a driver, if you're in top-level equipment and your main competition was with Ryan Sieg to make the playoffs, the blame can't lie on bad luck in one or two races. Rather, that's an overall consistency and performance problem. With all due respect, Cassill's done great for smaller teams in the past and has long been considered an underrated driver, but recently he's just come up a little bit short. Moving on to a bit of ARCA news, we've got 3 more driver announcements from Venturini Motorsports. Sean Hingorani will be racing full-time in the East Series. Isabella Robusto will be racing part-time likely in the National Series. And Dean Thompson will also be part-time in the National Series. Starting with Sean, only 16 years old, he'll probably be the only other title contender for the East Series besides the previously mentioned William Sawalik. So that'll be an interesting battle to watch all year. So far, Sean's made 5 West Series starts, in which he crashed out twice and posted a best finish of 12th at Portland, which I have to add was out of a field of 13 cars. But that's nowhere near enough data to make any claims about how Sean will turn out as a driver, so we'll have to wait and see how he does while racing for one of the best teams in the series this year. Meanwhile, for Isabella, at 18 years old, she'll be making her ARCA debut after having earned a couple of late model wins last year on top of a podium finish in the prestigious South Carolina 400. Finally, Dean Thompson, who'll be competing in his second full-time Truck Series season and his first with the Tricon Garage, will be looking for more track experience at Kansas, Charlotte, Mid-Ohio, Pocono, and Phoenix. I think without a doubt, Dean will be one of the favorites to win each of those races, and I fully expect him to come out on top at least one time. In other ARCA news, Logan Misaraka, who was previously linked to Ben Kennedy Racing, and now she'll be running the Daytona and Talladega races for Spraker Racing. She'll also be receiving a sponsorship from Celsius Essential Energy Drink. In the past, Spraker's fielded the number 63 car for Dave Mader III, the runner-up finisher in the 2021 Talladega race, but as Mader's now 67 years old, it looks like he might finally be stepping down from ARCA competition. Logan only has 1 ARCA start to her name, the 2022 East Series race in New Smyrna, in which she came in a more respectable 7th place. With that all said, now it's time for the Cup Series news, which, to be honest, besides sponsor announcements, there was not a whole lot of. However, the 2 stories this week were pretty big ones. The first one I'll go over was an update on the Travis Pastrana Daytona 500 attempt. On last week's episode, I covered rumors that Pastrana will be entering the 500 in a third 2311 racing car, but early on this week, 2311 Racing themselves made it official and revealed just about all the details regarding Travis's return to NASCAR. The car number will be the 67, which follows the pattern of the team's other numbers, the 23 and 45, as the first and last numbers increase by 2. The sponsor will be the Black Rifle Coffee Company, you might be familiar with seeing on Noah Gregson's Xfinity car and on Ty Dillon's Cup car this past season. Eric Phillips will also be the team's crew chief. He was John Hunter Nemechek's crew chief in the Truck Series in 2021 and 2022. And based on their success there, I'd have to say 2311 Racing was wise to choose him. From what it sounds like right now, Travis Pastrana will only be looking to enter the Daytona 500 to more or less just get it off his racing bucket list. So fans have begun speculating that Kurt Busch could potentially return on a part-time basis in this 67 car later this season. As of now, Kurt has still not been cleared to race, but I have to imagine he's not satisfied with retiring yet, so we'll have to wait and see on that one. After that, Kaulig Racing announced their rookie Xfinity Series driver Chandler Smith will also be attempting the Daytona 500 in their new part-time number 13 car. Smith will be sponsored by QuickTie, not just in the 500, but also in multiple Xfinity Series races and all of his other Cup Series starts, Richmond, the All-Star Race Weekend, the Fall Talladega race, and the season finale at Phoenix. As far as results, I don't expect much more than maybe a few top 20s, and for him to just stay out of any incidents and complete all the laps. I think this opportunity is well-deserved for Smith, who after racing for Accomplished Motorsports in the Truck Series for the past 2 years, was able to get to victory lane 5 times and score a best points finish of 3rd. As far as his rookie season in the Xfinity Series, I don't think he'll be a championship contender right away, but I do think he'll be able to win at least one race and make it past the round of 12 in the playoffs. It'll also be interesting to see whether Daniel Hemrick or even Landon Cassill find sponsorship will drive the 13 car in the Cup Series at all. I'm guessing at least Hemrick will for a few races, but nothing related to that has been announced yet. Well, that is all as far as new updates to the 2023 driver lineups, but there are plenty of additional new sponsor announcements and paint scheme drops in all three series, which I'll go over now. Beginning with Front Row Motorsports, who had by far the most of any team, as they announced Love's Travel Shops and Speed Co will be returning to their Cup and Truck Series teams. Community Choice Financial, their SpeedyCash.com brand, will be returning to sponsor Todd Gilliland and Zane Smith. Rudebush Development and Construction will be returning to sponsor Todd Gilliland in the Cup Series. And a new sponsor, Generator Skills, will also be signing with Todd Gilliland. Island Brands USA will be joining Casdrell and Sam Hunt Racing for 16 races with their brands Island Coastal Lager and Crush. Charge Me will be returning to Chandler Smith for multiple races in the Xfinity Series. The rest all coming from the Cup Series. Kyle Busch announcing yet another sponsor, Netspin, who will be the primary for multiple races. Castrol will be returning to RFK Racing to sponsor both Brad Keselowski and Chris Buescher. Celsius Energy Drink will be joining forces with Corey LaJoie for multiple races, beginning with the Daytona 500. United Rentals will be sponsoring Ryan Priest in select races. Bass Pro Shops will be returning with Richard Childress Racing and Austin Dillon for multiple races with a completely new paint scheme. And last but not least, DeWalt will be back with Christopher Bell for 10 races. But yeah, that's all for this week's Silly Season News. Thank you all for watching. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe because you won't want to miss out on any of my future Silly Season News recaps or the final episode of my Best Part-Time Drivers of 2022 series. But that's all. So until next time, peace out.